Hello everyone. So today in today's class we are going to learn what is the nature of literature. So when you listen the term literature, what exactly comes to your mind first? Something related to stories, fiction, drama, novels, theaters, poems, right? Here I have take, but there are other perspectives also like literary theories, literary criticism. These are also a part of literature. Okay. I have taken a definition from S.P. Tharnewell to define literature. Well, literature is an imaginative expression of an experience, both subjective and objective, in a structural form. Both subjective and objective in structural form through a creative use of both available and inverted language, exploiting and enriching the cultural resource of the society. Right here, in this definition, S.P. Tharnewell said that a piece of literature is something which contains an imaginative expression as well as the experience of both subjectivity and objectivity. Objectivity means something which we can see from the outer society, inspired through outer society, and subjectivity means the real nature of literature. So subjectivity and objectivity का means है you are you are perceiving some perspectives or taking some perspective from social element from your surrounding, and और subjectivity का मतलब है you are taking something from the terms of literature, nature of literature. Okay, so the combination of both in a structural format with an imaginative work will contain literature or make literature. That is what S.P. Thanwal said. Okay, in the next slide, we come to know different perspective of how there are various writers who describe that what exactly is a piece of literature or what exactly is not a piece of literature. So let's move to the next slide, right? Literature covers wide range, as I told you. Now, lakhs of books published every year, but not all are literature. How? See, we have different subjects like history, geography, polity, economy, but all are not a piece of literature, right? They all contains a formal language. We come to derive all this perspective from later on. But here, I am telling you that the subjectivity part is not a part of literature. Literature is something which contains imaginative expression or something which depicts the society. Also sometimes social element are also useful in some context. For instance, De Quincey has told. Now first let's begin with Charles Lamb, right? Charles Lamb excludes the work of Hume. Hume was a major philosopher, right? David Hume gave the nature of philosophies, or he gave a theories on philosophy. So how? But Charles Lamb described that philosophy is not a part of literature. And Hallam includes jurisprudence and theology, medicine under the piece of literature. He said Hallam ने कहा कि theology, medicine, these are all the parts which contains literature, or they are the part of literature. So we derive that the formal language, there is a supporter of formal language like medicine, theology. They have their own perspective, they have their own formal language, types of thing. And but Hallam supported that these are the piece of literature. But Charles Lamb, who said that the core philosophy is not a part of literature. Okay, so he excludes the work of Hume from the range of literature. He is the supporter and he is the critique. Okay, critique as in the sense, critique means as in the sense a negative critique. Okay, um, De Quincey. De Quincey divided the parts of literature into two parts, right? Literature of knowledge and literature of power. Here, power. See, literature of knowledge is a mixed literature, and it is used to teach for a didactic purpose. It is used for a didactic purpose. Its function is to teach. However, the literature of power is function is to move aesthetic purpose and it contains pure literature. So literature of knowledge is a part of mixed literature, and literature of power is a part of pure literature, like which includes fine arts like poetry, drama, novel, stories, etc., right? All those perspectives. See, after reading all this, we derive that literature is something which contains a general interest, right? And which yield aesthetics to us, right? These are all the two major characteristics of literature we derived from the previous discussion. Okay. Now, how it is different from other discipline, we come to know in the next slide about that. So it is different from other discipline. How? History, philosophy, politics, astronomy. So these all contain a formal language, and they all impart the knowledge. They all impart knowledge, not aesthetics. Okay. So history, it doesn't contains it contains facts, it contains the reality of our past, right? Philosophy, it contains the perspective of outer universe or something like uh, a part of philosophical elements and all. Politics contain the political like government and democracy, all those elements, they all contains a formal language. That is not a piece of literature. Astronomy is also a part, is also not a part of literature, because they are not, they does not provide you general interest, they does not provide you aesthetic, but they impart you knowledge. So this is how the other discipline is different from the literature. That is what the nature of literature. Nature of literature means literature is of informal language, and other discipline is of formal language. Literature's nature is it provide aesthetic, and the other discipline's nature is it does not provide aesthetic, but instead of that it imparts knowledge, right? Now let's move to our next slide. Hudson defined literature as literature is the vital record of what man have seen in life, what they have experienced of it, and what they have thought and felt about those aspects of it, which have the most immediate and enduring interest of all of us. It is thus fundamentally an expression of life through the medium of language, right? So Hudson said that literature, a piece of literature is written by an author or a poet or a writer or a dramatist. Okay. Uh, these are all the vital records of what exactly the author's surrounding was, what impacted the author, the surrounding in which the author has been uh, grown up. He wrote mainly about that, right? If we come to a part of Indian literature, for instance, Premchand is someone who grown up in such a society where there is a lots of operation separation to the downtrodden section of the society, right? To the vulnerable section. So he depicted in all his novels, for instance Godan, Gabbar, about the social elements. And for instance, we take a writer Emily Elizabeth Dickinson. In her poems, we mainly saw the conflict between herself and the conflict between different uh, whatever where she has grown up. So in the writings of herself, we derive a lots of impact of their own thought, their own experience, right? For instance, we can also take an example of Jane Austen from Pride and Prejudice. See, Jane Austen is someone whose works are mainly inspired through the social elements, right? Lorna de Cervantes, we can also take the example of Lorna de Cervantes. Her works, her poems contains Spanish terms because she is someone who, she's someone who is Mexican and Spanish. She has a lot of conflict between the both Mexican and but still living in America. So she has a conflict between her own language and her own mother tongue, her own native language where she was from. But right now she's living in America. So how the conflict between all those. So in her every poem we derive these impact that how her own feelings, her own thoughts depicts in her poems. So we have taken how many examples? We have taken examples of Vincent from Indian literature, Jane Austen from British literature, and we have taken Emily Elizabeth Dickinson from Emily Elizabeth Dickinson, right? And we have also taken example of um, Lorna de Cervantes. So Hudson's definition fits in all those writers. There are other writers as well on whom the Hudson's definition fits very well, and I think the definition is very much suitable because any writer who wrote is the record of what the experience they have taken when throughout their life and what exactly they thought and felt about it. Okay. Matthew Arnold also makes an approach to literature in the same manner. For him, for Matthew Arnold ने poetry को भी define किया. For him, poetry is the criticism of life. He said, poetry is the criticism of life. Poetry being the representative part of literature. Okay. It also becomes a criticism of life. Like literary artist is a critique of life. So how the social impact, how the society impacts an author, that is what Arnold and Hudson both try to depict as a part of literature. So literature, uh, it does not affect the writer or the piece of literature does not affect from any formal or formal language, any formal discipline, but it it got inspired from the experience of author, from the thoughts and feeling of the author. That is what we derived from Hudson and Arnold's uh, Arnold's works or their definition about the literature. Right now, let's move to our next phase. Here, I'm just going to give you an idea how the work of literature um, from ancient to modern, the definition got changes from ancient to modern. How? What was the nature of literature in ancient and what is the nature of literature in modern, and what are the nature between ancient and modern? Now let's first start with ancient period. In ancient period, for them, question of relations of art and morality was supreme. Art and morality, right? Plato in his Republic banished the writer who propagate immortality. In ancient time, there has been said that poetry and drama was immoral because they watered and fed humans' passion. So here, in ancient period we come to know that how Plato criticized the writer's own thinking and feeling, right? If you give your own thinking, your own feeling, and you propagate that immoral behavior of yourself uh, towards literature or in the piece of literature, that will be banished. Okay, you cannot do that because it will affect literature, right? And when the Philip Sidney came, right, Philip Sidney faced the same problem of art and morality from side of Puritans. So the Puritans regarded poetry an evil and immoral thing. So here we have seen that how the piece of literature from ancient to modern has been criticized by various authors. That if you are what exactly you should write in literature, what exactly you should not write in literature, that is all what from ancient to modern they all have fight for exactly fight for the identity of the literature, that if you are going to write this, you are banished from the writing, and you are not going to supposed to be the your works should not supposed to be the piece of literature. And that is what a sufferer of Philip Sidney also, like he faced the same problem of art and morality from side of Puritans. The Puritans regarded poetry an evil and immoral thing. So Sidney pleaded that poetry was not the evil thing. It was supposed to be but on the contrary, it was consistent with the correct religion. So he wrote a treatise on poetry, an apology for poetry, right? So from the next slide, we come to know that in this essay he expressed to view that the poetry is not unless and not useless, and its reading is not a waste of time. It is also not a mother of lies, because poetry neither affirms and therefore never lied, right? So we come to know that how in his art of poetry, Philip Sidney, in his apology to poetry, he gave this a view of that poetry is not useless, and he spotted his own argument that poetry is a piece of literature and should be there, and that whatever you express in poetry is all something, all the thing which supports his own argument he used to write there. Okay. During the 17th century, Milton follows the arch of poetry for moral progress. For instance, in the beginning of the Paradise Lost, he wants to justify the ways of God to men. This poem are full of moral aim and purpose. So, um, how from ancient to modern, there was a conflict between art and morality here in Milton also. Milton also in his poem Paradise Lost, the artistic work of him, uh, which contains a full of moral aim also and purpose among the okay, now among the romantics, Wordsworth, during the romantic period, a literary period, right? Wordsworth upheld moralist view of art. Poets should propagate moral and spiritual work of life. He says, I should like to be known as a teacher or nothing else. The poetry of Wordsworth is moralistic and didactic in form. So, from ancient till romantic age, there was a thing to write something, a piece of literature which contains morality. So that is what we derived from one of the point of nature of literature, that literature should be moral. Okay, literature should be moral. That is what from ancient till romantics, and now later on also the same thing prevails. Like what was I said, literature should be moral. You always from the your early childhood always read moral stories. Have you ever read immoral stories? where the author teaches you how to become poor, or sorry, how to become an evil character. There is always a winning of hero, not a villain, right? Always a for a moral character. Okay. In the Victorian era, Walter Peter said that art is master. Art is end in itself. He judged the art on the impression it makes on him and not by the rules or set of standards. Oscar Wilde said that there is no such thing as moral or immoral book as well as written or badly written. That is all. So Oscar Wilde, how he just did, he said that whatever the piece of work is, literature is not moral, not immoral. All are book. There is nothing which is badly written, and there is nothing which is goodly written. ठीक है? So that is all Oscar Wilde generalized everything, right? In the modern age, what exactly the nature of literature is? So, in modern age, literature is considered as an art with a social product, expresses the problems of society. So, in modern age, literature expresses the hope and aspirations of the society. So, here is the period of realism is going on, right? People are mostly fond about the reality. They are impacted by the society. They always wrote something which expresses the social product and the aspirations of the society. So uh, that is all about the nature of literature. Now let's sum up what characteristics we derived from whole discussion. Well, key points to remember about the literature: that it is artistic, it is moral, it should contain aesthetics, it should provide pleasure, it should be oratory, provide pleasure again. It should have informal language. Okay, literature is not philosophy. Uh, it contains autobiography. All the diary entries, all are literature. Literary criticism, literary theory are the piece of literature. So these are the key points to remember about the literature. Well, thank you for this session, and I hope you enjoyed the video and learned exactly what literature is. Thank you so much for watching.